It has become a tradition for me, somehow, that after I finish a wonderful series that I really enjoy, I watch the terrible live-action adaptation. I did it with my beloved Avatar: The Last Airbender. I did it with Percy Jackson. And here we are today. I've only watched the first one, and I refuse to do more for you. Now, I don't tend to watch a lot of movies, but it is my understanding that the goal of an opening is to, one, capture the audience, make them interested, and two, set the tone for what the audience is meant to expect out of said movie. I don't know if it succeeded at point one, but point two was a roaring success. This movie opens up with the introduction and then abrupt death of their mother, Trisha, and then the failed resurrection. This scene, much like every scene in the entire movie, is ill-explained, completely emotionless despite it being an emotional scene, and it's basically just a speed run of something that I assume the showrunners or the movie runners hope that you already have emotions attached to, because they will not assist you in that. So, success. Thank you for setting the tone for this movie. From here, we jump straight into action. We have our grown Ed chasing down some guy. This, too, does an excellent job of setting the tone for the rest of the movie. We have no idea who Cornello is, why the boys are fighting him, and what kind of influence he has on the rest of the people around him. In fact, if I were to have just watched the movie and have no context, I would assume that he's a lone wolf who has no following or influence on the city at all. And in fact, in this scene, he makes himself out to be a villain because he just randomly grabs people in the street and threatens to kill them for his own benefit. He doesn't use any sort of influence to, I don't know, tell the people, hey, they're trying to kill me. Do you see how they're trying to kill me? Go defend me. No, he has no influence here. He is not liked by anybody. By the movie, his sole purpose is to be a baddie with no influence who happens to have a false philosopher's stone so that we can introduce the concept of a philosopher's stone to the audience. Which does make it a little bit confusing as to why he would have a relationship with the baddies of the movie. Why would they even bother with him if he is a lone wolf who has no influence? But I mean, we don't have to explain things here. That is not what we are doing today. Plus, more tone-setting things at the very beginning of the movie. We have creatures that could be interesting, but they're not. Instead, they just crumble when you touch them. We have CGI that really speaks for itself and remains consistent throughout the entire movie. And we have a wig that is so attention-grabbing that it steals the show in every scene it's in. Really couldn't have a better start to the movie. Some of my other favorite decisions for this movie are just like generally the character work at large. Ed, who is generally a very selfless, driven, strong character who's very, very intelligent and thinks through every obstacle he faces and finds a way around it while still keeping his ideology intact, his choice of not being willing to use someone else's sacrifice to soak up the cost of what he and Al have done in trying to get their bodies back. He's incredibly clever, is constantly solving the problems and finding ways around things, and he is very noble. He will not be moved, even though there's plenty of opportunity to sink down to the level of many, many people that we meet within the series. In the movie, Ed solves nothing. He's constantly just being told, you go here, you do this. And so he goes and he does. Or instead of him, you know, slowly plotting out, putting clues together, the clues are given to Ed as well as us, the viewer, so that we have to figure this out together. That would take too much time, and we don't have that time. So instead, people just tell Ed, hey, the Laboratory 5, hey, this is how the Philosopher's Stone works. Hey, you don't need to think. Which I really like that character choice. It really strengthened him. I also really love the choice of the scene at the very beginning of the movie where Ed and Mustang, I believe, were talking, and Mustang says, and you would destroy a whole city in pursuit of this goal? Ed's reply, I would do anything to get Al's body back. I really love that they stayed true to his core character in that he would do anything and not, I have a very strong code of morality that I refuse to break no matter what. It was a really good choice. I feel like they stayed true to his character very well. Then you have Winry, who I would describe as weird faces, weird body language, and weird hugs.
Winry!
Then we have Al, one of my favorite characters in the series, who is so sweet, so tender, so giving and selfless, and just generally the kindest kid in the world, but also very determined and wants to help not only himself and his brother, but he wants to help pretty much anybody in his path. And on top of that, he has a tremendous amount of internal pain that he struggles throughout this. He's a really complex character. He's a kid who is determined to give constantly and he's so strong, but he also is terrified of the night because every single night he is the only one awake and he is completely alone. And he has this internal struggle of, am I still human if I'm just a soul? Where's the boundary here? And having to deal with that within himself as well as with different people that he meets along the way. In the movie, he's completely CGI, so he's just written out of most of the scenes that he should be in. Why not just put a guy in an armor suit? Then we could actually have him in the movie a little bit more. And his entire character and internal struggle are basically just reduced to that one fight that he and Ed had, which is appropriate for the movie because it's basically a speed run. There's no setup for for his character and why we should care. The only buildup we got in this was Nina's dad implanting or giving him the idea that he could not actually be human at all. You know the scene, which made sense when Barry did it. And don't get me wrong, I'm totally cool with adaptations, condensing cast, writing characters out, and then giving that character's role to another character, because at the end of the day, when you have to condense the time in which you tell a story, some things have to be removed, some things have to be shuffled, some characters have to be condensed. I'm totally cool with that, and as much as I love Barry the Chopper, I understand needing to remove him if you're trying to do a lot in a small space. But it doesn't actually make sense to have Nina's dad delivering this line because it really just comes off like he's just being a jerk. Like he just genuinely decides to taunt the boy for no reason. Whereas like with Barry, it's a soul talking to a soul. So it kind of makes sense why Al would put some value into this concept. But when he does it, it's just like, I don't know you. I have no investment in you. We have no connection. Why would I care about you randomly, abruptly, for no reason, bringing up this fear that you want to implant in my mind? But he totally believes it and dives into it fully. And since we've had no establishment of any sort of internal turmoil for Al up to this point, it's just, we're just abruptly fighting now. But then it's over so fast that like, who cares, right? So I would say if we're gonna write Barry the Chopper out, let's just write this scene out because it didn't work anyway. Don't try to force a scene to work without any of the context that makes the scene work, but then do none of the buildup that makes that scene have any sort of emotional payoff. Speaking of Nina's dad, the scene with Nina's failed transmutation is one of my favorites in the movie. When Ed returns from watching Marco die, which, by the way, Ed watched Marco die. Lust showed up and killed Marco right in front of them, and then Marco's just out of the movie. It doesn't matter. Nothing is explained, and it doesn't make sense for the movie, so it doesn't matter. So moving on. When Ed returns from watching Marco die, Nina is much wider than he is. It doesn't work for him to be blocking Nina. And so Ed just like awkwardly looks around the room, not making eye contact with him as they have this conversation to justify him not actually seeing the giant monster behind the man he's talking to. And it brought me so much joy. Hey, Mr. Tucker, I just got back. I wanted to say hi. Oh, welcome back, Ed. Hey, where's Al? And I haven't seen Nina around either. Didn't you have a dog at one point? Nope. No, I don't think Al or Nina were ever here. Actually, you must be mistaken. Huh, that's weird. Probably nothing though. I won't think too hard about it. Yeah, best not to think about it. That's a good call. Anyway, I made this vampire. Huh? Ooh! Oh, another scene I really liked in the movie was when they pretended that Roy killed Hughes for like 2 minutes. Roy is a character that's just like every other character in the movie in that he has no characterization, no personality, and there's no reason for the viewer to care about him. So the scene where they tried to convince us for 2 minutes that Roy killed Hughes, I thought was beautiful because up to this point, the movie has relied on the hope and the dream that the viewers have had some experience with the series before this, the manga or the anime, because they explain, I kid you not, nothing. So you would have to have some sort of prior knowledge in order to string these concepts together and add some sort of context to make it work. So they've so heavily relied on viewer knowledge to tell their story, and then at this point they're just like, do you believe us? Do you think it's true? Mustang killed Hughes. Do you believe? You don't believe? Okay, fine. He didn't kill Hughes. Okay, it wasn't him. Like, that's about as long as it took, and it made me so happy. Actually, let's just keep talking about Mustang because this movie did him no favors. So another scene that I really loved was when Mustang confronts Maria and kills her. And so he's met with Maria and her group of backup, right? These are people who believe that this is Maria and they are here to back her up. And so then when Mustang comes and burns her to a crisp, I mean, she is lit on fire, screaming, dying. The backup, with their guns in hand, nothing. They don't even attempt to shoot Mustang. Like, this man just killed your superior officer, and you're like, nobody wants to try to take a shot? Nobody? Are we just all hoping that he's gonna kill Maria and then walk away and live a happy life as a good man? Do we not think that he's maybe a baddie or might try to kill one of us too, or any other innocent person who doesn't deserve to die? Y'all are really bad backup. But anyway, they all watch her burn and like they look a little bit surprised, but they definitely don't have any intention of stopping Mustang from continuing his reign of terror. They're just gonna stand there with their guns. And then same whenever Maria transforms into Envy and we realize, whoa, it was a trick. And your superior officer just got burnt to a crisp and then transformed into a new human. And they just look mildly surprised. They don't talk, they don't yell, they don't try to run. I mean, at least they start running whenever Gluttony starts doing his Teletubby walk towards them. So anyway, we find about the human sacrifices, we learn about some basic information that we need to kind of string these scenes together. One of my favorite scenes we got was when Lust tried to kill General Hakuro and then immediately giving up on that attempt and just staring at him for a while. Oh. Aw, I missed. I probably shouldn't try again though. Okay. I mean, he's just standing there staring at you, ready to release the army of the undead, but like, you already used your move, so you're probably out of experience points or something. So anyway, he pulls the lever, the dummies fall from the sky, and now we have this army of undead with souls attached to them that are these unfeeling, killing machines. But don't worry, they're not really much of a threat. They're mostly just bad special effects. I do really appreciate that this plot point in the manga that I would argue is really not an essential plot point. It's kind of just bulking up the baddies' defense or their army to just add more obstacles. And, you know, it was fine, but I don't even really think needed to be there. I really appreciate that it was so important to them to keep that plot point, but not so important that they needed to do anything with it for more than like 5 minutes tops. Much like most plot points in this movie, it was introduced and then eliminated within 5 minutes. Anyway, it turns out that Envy is a cat and he only has a certain number of lives, and Mustang deduces that he's on his last life. So we get this really great scene where Mustang burns and kills Envy and then burns and kills Lust. victory. Hawkeye is basically not in this scene. I really love this scene because of all the choices they could have made, making Mustang a relevant character throughout the movie, but then just completely skipping over his entire character arc of wanting to rise in the ranks to make the world a better place, but he nearly is unsuccessful in this goal because he turns to rage and hatred over Hugh's death and nearly destroys Envy in his rage, nearly digresses into this more hate-fueled version of himself to the point of even threatening his own friends so that he can get his revenge. We don't need any of that. In fact, he just kills Envy and we move on. One of the best scenes in the manga and anime we don't need. Like, this movie genuinely feels like a highlight reel of the best scenes in the series, or at least this chunk of the series, that it's just like, I just want to hit the high points and then loosely string together some dialogue and in between scenes to kind of make it a little bit fit. But that's the goal. Just hit the high points and as many as I can cram into this movie and bounce. But they couldn't use this high point for Mustang's one of the best parts of the entire series. They couldn't hit this high point because they're doing such a speed run of everything that they have no emotional stakes in anything that's happening. So there's just no way that they could pull this off. And I think they recognize that and just took the L and ran. Another great example of that, what I just described, the movie just hitting a bunch of high points and then like moving on, like, we did the thing, did you like it? Bye, and then like get to the next thing. Another great example of that is at the end of the movie when Ed goes through the portal of truth. Ed finally has an opportunity to step through the portal and to use the Philosopher's Stone to do so. And though his brother is emphatically telling him not to do it, it seems like he's gonna do it. He's not gonna do it. His entire character depends on him not using other people to accomplish his goal. He's not gonna do it. He's gonna do it. Remember that scene at the beginning of the movie where he said he'd do anything? He's gonna do it. They would have to change a core characteristic of this character and one of the main themes in the movie in order to do that. They're not gonna do it. So for some reason, the Truth wanted the Philosopher's Stone in exchange for Al's body instead of Ed paying the toll for his body, which I don't really understand, but I guess they never really established anything about the portal or anything up to this point. So it's okay if they break the rules because they haven't established any rules. So I guess this loosely works. I mean, we do know that the first time they went through the portal, Ed did exchange his limbs for what he got. First for the consequence of them trying to bring his mother back and then for bringing Al's soul back. So we do have that established, I suppose, but it was so brief. I don't really think any viewer who doesn't already know the series would really understand exactly what the rules are. So then coming here and changing the rules, I mean, at this point, sure, why not? And at least Ed didn't do it, so that's something. And credit where credit is due, I do like the way that they did Truth, the way that they adapted him. I like the swirlies, I think it's cool. I did like the scene after Al returned and he was crying because he wasn't able to return Al's body, and Al was just excited that his body was still there, and he was asking, was I taller than you? And Ed's like, trying not to cry and laughing and saying, yeah, you were taller than me. That was actually a really good scene. I actually quite liked that one. Plus the actor that they chose for Hughes, I'm very happy with him. Those are my 3 likes. So I initially was going to treat this movie much like I've treated the other live actions, the Avatar and the Percy Jackson, where I just kind of like go ham. But at this point, it's becoming like a fun sport for me to watch really bad adaptations and to just enjoy it. So I just had a good time laughing at all the ridiculousness that this movie was. Not to mention that my favorite character, Scar, isn't even in the movie, but I do know that he's gonna be in a sequel because his name is in a sequel, but I won't watch it. I'm not gonna watch you ruin him. I'm not gonna watch you remove all context and emotion around his character and just do the main beats of him and fail at even doing those. No way! But I did have fun laughing at this one, so I hope you had fun too. I will have linked my Fullmetal Alchemist playlist where I reviewed the series, talked about the series as I was reading through it. If you haven't already watched that, I have loved this series so much. And if you want to keep up with the books and the manga that I read weekly, you can check out my second channel, which has reading vlogs where I give weekly updates on what I'm reading as I'm reading it, as well as dedicated reviews and discussions with other people, other content creators. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on this channel, Tuesdays and Thursdays on the second channel, which is always linked in the description of this video, of any video. I'll see you again soon. Bye.